This is a reading from Stories for All, a project of the New York City Commission on Human Rights.
Today I'm going to read a book called Paper Song, the inspiration story of Tyrus Wong, immigrant and artist. The book author is Julie Leung, illustrated by Chris Sasaki. Before he became an artist named Tyrus Wong, he was a boy named Wong who traveled with his father across a vast ocean to America, carrying a bundle of papers in his hand. The paper was not for drawing monkeys, which he loved to do. They were papers describing the life of another Chinese boy, whom Gan Yao was pretending to be. He had to memorize every word. In 1990, Chinese immigrants were not allowed into United States unless they could prove they were citizens of a high status, a scholar, a merchant, a business owner, or the trial of such a citizen. So the boy's father pretended to be a merchant named Leung. Wang Yao became his son, Leung Tai Yao. He was now Ji Zai, a paper son. Each night, the boy studied the answers to exacting questions. What are the names of the families who live in your village? Who is the leader of your district? How far is it to the next villager? The immigrant officials will ask me the same questions and compare our answers to make sure you are my son, his father said. If they do not match, you will be sent back and never see Gang Sam. Gang Sam means Gold Mountain in Cantonese. That was what the Chinese called America because of the opportunities there. See, his father would say, pointing to the horizon. Life in Gang Sam will be like a blank paper, and we will decide how to mark it. The boy followed his father's gaze to where water met the sky. Maybe he would spot a glimmer of Gold Mountain too. At last, they arrived at Angel Island. His father, who had been in America before, cleared immigration quickly, but the boy was held back. Scared and alone, Gan Yao was taken to a wooden house filled with strangers. There he waited. Days turned to weeks. This new land was not what he expected. The streets were not lined with gold. The barracks were crowded and dirty. He missed his father very much. There was no drawing paper, no ink, no pen. He watched the sun move slowly across the sky, always arching back toward the home he left behind. Finally, Gan Yao was brought in front of three men, who bombarded him with questions. How many windows does your house have? What direction does your village face? Where did you go to school? The boy was nervous, but he remembered all his answers from the coaching papers his father had given him. He was released from Angel Island. His father was waiting for him with arms outstretched. Now we must look for opportunities, he said. At a school in Sacramento, Wang Yao was given new name by his teachers, a name that combined his real name and his paper name. Tai Yao was Americanized with Tyrus Wong. Tyrus did not like school. He preferred sketching to science, doodles to diagrams, art to arithmetics. Tyrus' father had been well educated in China, but not to be a Chinese immigrant was to be a servant, a laundryman, a waiter. And to find this job, he often had to travel far, leaving Tyrus alone for months. Still, his father believed life in America could be like a blank paper. One day, he brought home a brush and made Tyrus practice Chinese calligraphy. Because they could not afford ink and paper, Tyrus wrote with water on old newspapers. And after the paper dried, his father would say, "One more time." His father borrowed enough money to send Tyrus to art institution in Los Angeles. Tyrus learned to paint and draw in the Western style, smudging stick charcoals to form shadows and mirroring the way light hits objects. He also studied artwork from China's Song dynasty, where watercolors and simple lines communicated much by showing little. The lusciousness of a flower could be felt with gradual increases of color, and mountains could loom in the distance with a few jagged lines. In the evenings, Tyrus mopped the floor as the school janitor. He swirled the soapy water around, the mop dancing in his hand like a paintbrush. Tyrus graduated at the top of his class and began working as an in-betweener at Walt Disney Studios. In the early days of animations, in-betweeners draw the frame in between a movie's key art, the same thing over and over, with only small changes each time, to create the feelings of movement. The work was boring, and his eyes throbbed. One day, Tyrus heard that Disney was making a movie called Bambi, about a young deer who must learn to survive without his mother, and the animators were having trouble creating the backgrounds. Tyrus thought about the mother he had left behind in China, and the father who always believed in him. He thought that his style of painting, one that combined East and West, his painting, his past and his present, Tyrus saw an opportunity. He spent days painting landscapes. Instead of drawing a forest scene, leaf by leaf, tree by tree, he created the feeling of woods and mountains with brush stroke and soft watercolors, where other artists might use 10 strokes of a brush. He used 5. The result was breathtaking. Walt Disney loved it. He instructed his animators to follow Tyrus' style. Bambi became a groundbreaking film. Audience and critics gushed about the art, how it communicated so much by showing so little, how you could almost smell the mossy green of the woods and hear the rushing water of the brook. But in the end, Tyrus was credited only as a background artist. Walt Disney Studio fired Tyrus after an employee strike, even though he did not participate. It would be many years before the war saw Tyrus Wong for the artist that he was. But Tyrus never stopped painting, and not just on paper. Throughout his life, he would draw his art on chromatics, silk scarves, murals, menus. Tyrus always found new ways to leave his mark. As an old man, Tyrus discovered a love of kites, caterpillars, and pandas, fish and butterflies. He would tell people he wanted to be looking up. How else could one see Gold Mountain? On sunny days, you could often find Tyrus Wong on the beach, facing the ocean he crossed so long ago, flying a large, colorful kite he would make himself, gleaming gold where water met the sky.
If you enjoyed this reading, visit nyc.gov/human-rights for more selections from Stories for All. Stories for All includes over 250 books to help students of all ages explore the issues and experiences facing diverse communities.